I gotta say, dude, I really appreciate the fact that we don't have regeminators anymore. Like, it's still really annoying to swap gems on PC because you gotta drag and drop it from one side to the other side of the screen, but I guess I'll take it. Oh, I'm just dancing with my buddy. Leave us alone, Multi. No, I'm kidding. But first, we have a message from today's sponsor, GameAgo. Hello, everybody. I'm the Solarian. You thought you saw the last of me, but So there's actually a Trove cosplay contest going on right now where you can end up winning some mega cash prizes, right? And I mentioned that the closing date for the contest was going to end up being the 28th of August. Well, that period has actually been extended. So taking a look at the website, it says that the participation period is from the 29th of July to September 8th. So we've actually got an extended week period. This means that if you guys want to end up participating in this Trove cosplay contest, what you're gonna do is check the link in the description to the website that I'm looking at right now. You'll end up finding a download link for the PDF of this face, which is going to normally be in color, and these ears normally go on the face. Okay, mine sucks, I know. And you are tasked with recording yourself out in public and then uploading that video to TikTok with the hashtag Trove cosplay, hashtag gaming. I've already got my video over on TikTok with a link in the description to check it out if you guys want to. And I mean, hey, if you guys end up dropping a like on that TikTok video, I mean, I would appreciate it because I'm kind of participating in this contest, but at the same time, I don't really care if I don't win. I don't know. But I feel like it would be stupid not to participate in this contest, even if it's unlikely to win, just because the first place prize is going to go to the video that has the most likes, and they're going to win 1,000 euros. And then second place is going to end up being a video voted on by a jury of GameAgo employees and influencers. I know I'm on that list of influencers. I don't know if there's other people yet, but that second place prize is also going to end up winning 1,000 euros. That's a lot of cheddar. But don't worry, even if you don't end up winning the first or second prize, you will still end up getting a sundered cash for participating in the contest, which somebody will get something good out of them. But anyways, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to GameAgo for giving me this opportunity, because Lord knows I could use the money come October. You know, like for normal life, day-to-day stuff and paying bills and everything like that, YouTube gets the job done. But come October, I'm getting married and also buying a condo with my future wife. So like my TikTok video. What is up, Scyushi Squad? We are back again. There's some more Trove, and we are finally continuing. You remember last time we ended up doing the 35K series, the 36K series. We're finally up to doing the 45K series. Now, I am going to have to explain a couple preliminary things, seeing as this is going to end up being the first of many in the series of the 45K. So essentially, what we're doing with this series is quite literally just taking a class at 45K PR, and then we're going to experiment with them in deep delves, as well as, or it depends how deep the delve portal ends up getting, and then just U11, you know, just generally trying to show off like, okay, this is what this class is going to end up being like at the new endgame. Now, keep in mind that 46K PR is actually the new maximum. So that's what we're actually low-key aiming for, and eventually we will end up doing a 46K series. However, my crystal gems aren't all fully maxed out. They're pretty close, but they're not all there. And I don't know whether or not having all my gems maxed out is going to get me to 46K, unless I'm using a class that is using like full-on Crystal 4 gear, you know, using my permit torch. Pretty much everything has to be perfect. And so you got to also consider that the only gems that I have at high level in Crystal is physical gems, which means that for those of you that are probably sitting there like, oh my god, I can't wait to see, like, I don't know, the Ice Age or 45K, that's going to take a really long time, because you got to understand that I still have to get a full set of crystal gems for magic classes that I then have to level up as well. So gonna be a bit, it's gonna take a while, okay? Like, this series is going to end up slowly getting done throughout the entire year, basically, and hopefully I'll be able to get it all by the end of the year. I don't know, things are really busy. So a couple other things too that I gotta just mention, just for discrepancy's sake, is I hope you guys can't hear it. It's very humid today, so I do have the fan blowing on me right now, but I tried to make it angled in such a way that it's just on me and not on the mic. So hopefully we don't have any artifacts or anything like that where you just hear like wind or whatever. I don't know. Headphone users, you guys can let me know. But anyways, I'm also not going to end up using a hidden ring effect. I know that in these videos, a lot of you guys are always wanting to see, oh, what's the best hidden ring effect? I don't actually have the best hidden ring effect on my Shadowhunter. Let me get out of the way here. So these are the bad ones, unfortunately. The only good one on Shadowhunter is the one that makes it so that when you use your ultimate ability, you'll end up gaining an additional seeker that'll come out of your character and deal extra damage. Not really important in terms of just fighting in the overworld, though. Like, that's not really that big of a deal. I also want to point out that I'm going to end up mentioning what the character is going to end up being like against a boss, like, say, a Leviathan. But generally speaking, we're not going to end up fighting a Leviathan in these types of videos. I think that it would definitely be right at home, you know, especially for the 45K series, you know, big deal. But frankly speaking, it just takes such an absurd amount of time for me to try and go out of my way to get a Leviathan. And then on top of that, I have to fight it solo to end up giving good examples of whether or not the character is powerful enough to handle it alone or not. Anyways, we'll go into U11 Geode Surface very briefly. This is not going to end up being where most of our area, you know, of testing is going to end up being. It's most of all just I wanted to show you guys just how powerful we can end up being, because I do have maxed out light. I do have all of my cosmic gems maxed out. So the only thing is that my lesser gems and stuff would end up giving me a little bit more stats, which, as you can see, I've got way too much crit hit. The only difference, that it's not really going to make much of a difference in terms of our damage today, because the only difference would be that I would swap that crit hit off into max health. That would be it. This guy seems like he's trying to follow me around, which is cool, but not necessarily for the sake of today's video. I'm just going to try and show a boss, try to fight something just nice and quick so that we can see some quick damage numbers. So our shots are doing like 6.4 mil each. You gotta consider that this is also without using any emblems or anything like that. So 5.1 to 5.4, it seems to scale a little bit depending on the enemy. Sometimes I'm seeing an 8. 8.4 is probably when an enemy is shadow marked. And of course, you know, with the way that the Shadowhunter works right now, a lot of your ability is going to end up being just in your trap. The only area where you can't really use your trap, as you can see in U11, it's a bit annoying because when the enemies spawn, they don't get one shot and it just freezes them in place. So it actually keeps them further away from you. Now, if we do end up popping a flask, we end up doing 10 to, I saw 12 mil per shot, which is actually insane. That's a lot of damage. Our ultimate without anything going on, that was about 16 to 12 mil I saw right there. So definitely going to end up being useful. But generally speaking, I find that the ult, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but I find that even though they ended up kind of fixing the ultimate of the Shadowhunter, it still isn't without its problems since the rework, and it is a little bit unfortunate. My Seekers are on the ground right now, so let's see what they do. 28 to, I don't even know what that error number was, but about 28 mil, so crazy. But we're going to most of all be hanging out in U11 Prime Worlds, because the sundered uplands is the strongest area in the game currently. The reason for that is because in Prime Worlds, you know, in U10, U11 of Prime Worlds and Elemental Worlds, you basically do have to have a certain amount of light in order to even deal damage to these opponents now. Like, it's not just strictly related to the geode area. But the thing is that this area, you've probably already noticed how much it kicks your butt. And the reason for that is because this area in particular, they have the enemies and everything, like everything is like basically scaling down the player. So these enemies deal a lot more damage, they're a lot more resistant, you name it, you know, like they've got basically everything going for them. So even though we're still doing heaps and heaps of damage and still able to handle them, it still doesn't mean that these guys aren't quite powerful, and it can be really, really difficult if you don't end up having the amount of light that's required and so on and so forth. They do seem to have less resistance than the geode characters though, but they do have more health. So we can see our shots. No, okay, so they're doing like 6.8. I'm seeing 8. I saw 10 on that guy, 3.5 on that guy. Very weird. It's very all over the place. It's I don't get it, dude. But anyways, the point is that the enemies in here are some of the strongest enemies in the game. As far as I know, certain ones actually have like higher resistance than others, so it's very, very difficult to get. There you go. You can see these guys up here. I'm only doing like 2.7 mil on him, so he's way more resistant. 4.2 on that guy because of Shadow Mark. We're definitely able to handle it, as you can see, but I think these enemies up here on the surface, or the uplands, I think that they're stronger than the ones in the Ashen biome. Yeah, so we got the same damage numbers, 2.7. So what if I use a flask? We bump up to 6.8, and I saw a 7 mil something. I mean, generally speaking, we're most of all just going to be talking about like damage numbers today, just because that's all we can really do is just show off like, okay, well, how are we handling this area? So let's see. What if I shadow mark him and then use my alt if it would ever... Okay, alt broke. Let's just right click. There we go. That was 40 mil with our seekers. Granted, that was probably like all of them hitting at once, but still... The seekers end up becoming a lot more useful in this area, I found, because generally speaking, you don't use your seekers that much out in the overworld just with like normal enemies and stuff like that. But as soon as you end up coming into the sundered area, and especially U11, it starts to make a really, really big difference because it's just extra passive damage. There is some problems with it that I would criticize and really, really hope that the devs would end up fixing, but you know that they won't. One of them is that the Seekers still make the age-old mistake with any ability in Trove, where I'm holding left click, I right click, and it stops my attack. I don't know why the devs just cannot make it seamlessly separated animation. Like, why can't I just right click, the arrows pop out of me, but I don't stop my attack functionality? Like, I just keep shooting, you know? That would really end up helping out with a lot of classes, not just the Shadowhunter and its Seekers. And then on top of that, you already saw firsthand that the ult is still very, very janky. It doesn't work all of the time. It's definitely better than the old ult that we used to have, but it's not great. It's not as good as it could be. The other thing too that I guess I should mention, you know, I gotta always take the opportunity to talk about it in these videos, but you know, generally I think that's enough of a playtest for that. So let's go into the delves. Generally speaking, what the end game boils down to, and whether a class is going to end up being viable, is one of two things, which is either speed farming or boss farming, sometimes delves, but delves kind of creeps into the territory of boss farming. Not entirely, because when you're speed farming, it's either how fast can you travel from dungeon to dungeon, or how much damage can you do, or both. And then when you're fighting a boss, obviously it's a little bit about survivability, but most of all it's about the damage output. And then with delves, it's kind of a blend between the two. So you have to either have high survivability so that you can last through the entire delves floor and get all the way to the end, or you just have to be dealing such ridiculous amounts of damage that it doesn't matter. So I'm gonna see if I can end up hopefully doing a pretty high delve. We'll see what the challenge delve portal goes up to, and then otherwise we might only be able to test this at 136 because it's the highest portal I have, unless I craft a portal where I could test it myself and just swap it. But I'm not exactly sure how high this is going to scale, so let's find out. Just goes to show how little I end up doing the delves. I forgot that the challenge portal is the one that always spawns at depth 110. See, the problem is that I think we have to use a depth stepper portal, but as you can see, I can't really craft that many of these, unfortunately. Like, I guess I could craft one of these crappy ones just because the amount of resources is very, very low. And then if I'm not mistaken, I can just choose what depth this goes to, right? Because that's what always happened whenever we ended up doing the Aphira portal. Which, the thing is, I don't really know what our limit is. You know, like, I would say that depth, you know, back when we ended up doing the 36K series, depth 136 would be fine. That would actually be pretty difficult to solo that floor. But we've already had like basically a 10k power rank increase, and our damage is actually like exponentially higher. Okay, so it's scaling me to 138. Does it let me? No, it only lets me go to 138. Oh, interesting. Okay, well, this will be a good test then, because if we can't do this, then we know for a fact that you know, basically this means that I can use the 136 portals for the rest of the 45k series when we end up getting there. This will be a good damage check though, because Shadowhunter, being how powerful it is, well, it could end up, this could end up being pretty bad. Okay, this is, yeah, this is not looking too bad. Duplicate themselves, I don't like that. Players take additional damage. Whatever, let's just do a damage check. Okay, so far we're doing fine. I mean, do these even count as enemies? Yeah, they are. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Why does it only let me go to 138? You guys let me know, okay, in the comments. Like, is there a way that I can end up going to a higher depth? Because this is kind of a joke right now. It could just be the theme. It could be the type of portal that it is. But generally speaking, we seem to be doing fine in terms of the amount of damage that we can do. Because I don't really know when U11 difficulty ends up starting for the Delves. Yeah, so these guys are a little bit tankier, but they're not really damaging me that much. And frankly speaking, if I needed that little bit of survivability, the option would be that instead of using the Berserk gem, which that guy actually almost one-shot me, interesting. Instead of using the Berserk gem, I would just swap it to Vampirium, and then we would be able to survive no matter what, like guaranteed. But I'm just gonna try and get to the boss, and we'll see what happens. That's interesting, actually. I didn't even notice whatever mod I've got is showing the numbers on the top of the compass, like for the depth floors or whatever, or the rooms, I guess. That's interesting. Anyways, let's see how this guy generated. He's probably gonna be a joke based on the trap that I just did, and yeah, so he's a bit tankier, but generally speaking, if I pop my ult, yeah, no problem. He's only got 18 bill health, so that's not that bad to deal with, frankly speaking. Now, I'm kind of going to end up wasting this portal, which kind of sucks because the amount of resources that I just spent on it, but because I'm very curious whether or not this being a special type of portal generated weaker than if I just ended up using the depth 136. Like, that might actually be stronger just because it would generate more enemies and stuff. Now, that said, we are talking about the Delves, which does mean that it's very, very random. So the difficulty is very, very hard to get the range of it. Because that was the other thing too, is I know that sometimes in the 36K series, I would be like, oh, this character sucks in the Delves. But the fact is that I just generated a really, really bad floor, and it wasn't necessarily any fault of the character. Now, that said, I'm going to try and get to depth 140 just to see if they end up scaling a little bit higher than this. Oh, whoops. I got to clear enemy rooms. That's going to suck. Boss room. All right. Anyways, depth 140. Let's go. Let's see how this fares. So it still says U10 shrouded. I'm wondering whether or not it eventually does say, oh, there we go. So these enemies are clearly higher scaled. Let me actually check the buffs. Trovian attacks heal them for a percentage of their max health. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's the worst ability in the entirety of Delves because it basically like inflates their health like way too much. Thankfully, we only have to defeat monoliths. So usually these enemies are a little bit weaker. But the point I was trying to say 2 seconds ago before I interrupted myself is whether or not it says U11 at a certain depth. Do you guys know if it does? Like, I haven't really gotten that deep into the Delves just because I don't really care that much. But I wonder whether or not eventually it just says like U11 now, or if it always says U10, because that was one of the problems that was with the game before. We do still seem to be able to handle this though. I think we would be very hard pressed. Okay, so these dragons are the ones that are super duper strong. So let's use our ult. This is one of the only areas where our hidden ring effect might actually be helpful, is just because of how difficult these enemies are. But I'm fairly confident that depending on generation, we could probably handle up to 145, 146, depending. Maybe even be able to push it to a full-on like 150, but I highly doubt that. Jesus, stop knocking me around. Remember when they said that they reevaluated how knockback works, and then everybody started playing the game and was like, what did you change? Because they didn't change anything. I did. So the other thing too, I guess we'll kind of start closing and wrapping up this video, because frankly speaking, I think that we're going to end up being fine in terms of dealing with this floor, is I ended up explaining how speed farming works, how the end game works in terms of bosses and dealing damage, or being, you know, having the survivability and stuff. But I didn't go into detail about where I think Shadowhunter fits in. Now, Shadowhunter right now Oh, it's weeping. Shadowhunter is perfectly fine. Shadowhunter is one of those characters you can main for pretty much anything. He's going to end up being a very good boss killer. He's going to be able to handle the delves very well just because his damage output is just so high, as you can see. And then on top of that, he is also a very good speed farmer because when you roll with him, you end up gaining a speed boost and you can actually just roll to refresh that, which is very, very nice. I love the changes that they ended up making to the Shadowhunter. They're great. And yeah, you can't really go wrong with this guy. Like, frankly speaking, you know, lots of people are always still asking how strong is it and stuff like that, and you can main it for pretty much every aspect of the game, which is awesome. There are some slight tweaks that I would like to see done on the character, like I mentioned with the Seekers interrupting your attack animation, but that is a huge criticism that I have for Trove as a whole, because so many of the characters I feel need to have more fluent animations. Like, you guys have probably seen me playing on my Barb lately, and we've got the hidden ring effect spin to win, which makes us essentially able to spin indefinitely. But watch what happens when I hold right click. Spin, stop, spin, stop, spin, stop, spin, stop, because the animation was never designed in such a way to continually have him spin. So I'd like to see them fix stuff like that, because it would just end up really helping with the overall quality of the game as well as the functionality of some of these characters. Oh, hey, we got C3. Cool. But anyways, that's going to do it for me today, gamers. Sorry that there was a day off yesterday. I got busy with all the wedding planning prep stuff. And yeah, you're going to see more videos either like this or class guides and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, I got to get this video out to you guys and then start streaming right away. And not Trove. I'm going to stream something else. I'll probably stream Trove tomorrow because I swear to God, I have yet to catch Gem Day while live streaming, and I'm not going to miss it this week, so help me. So you guys can tune into that tomorrow. I don't know when I'll end up doing that, but either way, I appreciate you guys coming out and hope you had fun. Smash the like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, even though YouTube disabled my merch. I don't know why. I tried reaching out to them, dummies. They disabled my merch on my store, so you can't actually see it under my videos anymore or anything like that. It's not that they went out of their way to disable it. It's just that YouTube is such a broken piece of crap that it just stopped showing it. And now if I try to add the merch like under the video or during live stream or whatever, I know you guys don't care, but I do. When I try to add it, it just says there is no merch. Yes, there is. If you go to my store with links in the description, it's still there. In fact, there's going to be an end card on this video that you can click to go to my store. Like, it's so stupid and frustrating, and this is what I've been dealing with. Bye, guys.